Joe Biden's tax plan. Let's talk about it in deep dive now. And as we inch closer to this election, only 40 or so days left until election day, all eyes on what a Joe Biden tax plan would look like for the average American right now. Now, if you listen to President Trump has been out there saying that it's going to destroy the middle class, that it's going to hurt the low-income worker. And according to new data out this morning from the Wharton School of Business, that's not true. I guess it comes as no surprise that that's not true. It doesn't matter, though, in politics. You can still go out on the podium and say whatever you want about it. I know. That's how it goes. Man. I'm sorry, Joe. That's the truth. Come on, man. That's how it goes. But what is actually in this plan? It's worth having a discussion about it. How could it affect you? How could it affect your family? How could it affect your business? So, will the middle class be attacked if Joe Biden's tax plan is put into practice? Like I said, if you listen to President Trump, then the answer is yes, but the answer is actually no, according to the Wharton School of Business, that it will adversely affect those who are the wealthiest Americans. So let's look at the numbers. Biden says no individual with taxable income of $400,000 or less would see any kind of a federal tax increase under his plan, at least directly. And less than 2% of the United States households report that level of income. How many people watching right now in the chat make over $400,000 a year? Let me know in the chat. Let's just take a sampling, because according to the data, fewer than 2% of the United States households make more than $400,000 a year. So those would be the people affected by Joe Biden's tax plan. So let's be clear about that. There are several policy provisions tied up in his promise, and we'll tell you what those are. Income tax rates will get obviously the most attention. So if your annual income is $400,000, maybe you could just skip down to the rest of this or pay attention later, because you are going to, if your income is less than $400,000, this is not going to affect you. If it is, though, if you're making that $400,000 or more, you're going to expect an added tax, an annual income tax rate up to 43% from 31% where you currently are. So that top 0.1%, those people making $3 million a year or more, would see their tax rate increase and go up to 43% from 31% currently. Again, that's the top 1%, 0.1%, who make $3.3 million annually. Now, Biden also wants to increase the capital gains tax rate on profits from asset sales to nearly 40% for Americans who earn $1 million or more. President Trump wants to drop that rate to 15%. And right now it's at 23%. So Biden wants to take it up to 40% on capital gains taxes, and Trump wants to put it down to about 15%. Again, this would be a tax break for the wealthy under Trump, and it would be a tax increase on the wealthy from Biden. What it means for the budget. So what does this mean for our overall United States budget? Well, through 2030, Biden's budget and tax plan would raise nearly $3.4 trillion in additional tax revenue for the U.S. government, but it would boost spending by another $5.4 trillion. So he's going to bring in 3.4, but he'll boost spending by 5.4. So again, we're going to be running a deficit here, which is just the way we do it. We love deficits. And President Trump has run one of the biggest deficits in American history right now. So they all do it. They all pay lip service to saying they're going to reduce the federal budget and shrink the size of government, but they never do. They never, ever do. We're going to drain the swamp, but they never do. Big picture here, despite Trump's claims, of course, that middle-class families would be largely unaffected, that his claim that middle-class families would be crushed, they will be largely unaffected by this. There's also a slew of business and banking tax law changes in this, but the big three headline proposals in all of this is that he wants a 28% corporate tax rate. Again, that would increase the corporate tax rate for many businesses. That's higher than the current 21%. But that's lower than the 35% rate that he and Obama had. So it's lower than what he had with President Obama as his president before 2017, that 2017 overhaul. President Barack Obama had pushed for a 28% tax rate at the time, but Republicans in Congress actually refused to negotiate on it. So Obama wanted to lower it to 28%, But remember, Republicans said, we're not negotiating with you on anything. Mitch McConnell said that. Right when he became president, he said, we're going to not do anything. We're not going to negotiate with you on any of this. Separately, Biden wants a 15% minimum tax on book profits, which is like a net annual income for corporations with at least $100 million in income. It's essentially a corporate version of the alternative minimum tax that some wealthier individuals would use to figure their personal income tax. Some of our people are calling it the Amazon rule, where basically Amazon pays nothing in taxes. So this would basically allow those big corporations, Amazon and the like, to pay actual taxes instead of paying nothing in taxes. So here's Vice President Biden talking about his tax plan and what it would mean for the American worker.
We should stop rewarding wealth and start rewarding work a little bit. Let's raise the capital gains tax for people making over $1 million a year to ordinary income. Let's reverse the Trump tax cut. Nobody making under $400,000 would have their taxes raised, period. Bingo.
So there you go. That's Vice President Biden's tax plan. $400,000, if you make anything from there under, would not be affected by this tax plan, according to independent studies and the Congressional Budget Office, including the Wharton School of Business, which analyzed this. So when you hear President Trump out there on the trail saying that middle class will be destroyed by it, by the way, there is no middle class anymore. Can we stop pretending that there's a middle class in this country? It's been destroyed. It's gone. So when President Trump has said we've had the greatest economy in U.S. history, that, number one, is not true. You can go back to the 1950s to see that that's not true. But also, what is he boasting? He's boasting about Wall Street doing so well and unemployment at 3.5%, and yet it doesn't account for all of the people that can't find work. It doesn't account for all of the people that there's no middle class anymore. They're saddled with student loan debt. They're at the poverty line, and Wall Street has been doing just fine. So can we get past this idea that back in February, everyone was great? Everyone was doing just fine? No, many of you had jobs, but still that doesn't mean that you were able to save money, put money aside, take vacations, make sure that your health care is taken care of, not having to wonder how you're going to pay your bills next month if you lost your job, living paycheck to paycheck. Great, you had a job, but are you living paycheck to paycheck? We should not live like that in this country. We should be able to have that safety net that takes care of our people. We should be able to have that safety net that provides some sort of a universal basic income for Americans. We should have public education for all and health care for all in this country, for crying out loud. We're the richest country in the world. Do not tell me that we can increase the military budget by 20% and yet we can't do anything for our college kids who are saddled with student loan debt or health care options for people, Medicare for all in this country. It's garbage. Our economy is a $25 trillion economy. It's okay for us to increase spending 20% so that we can build more fighter jets, so that Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all of these guys can make money on the backs of the American taxpayer. But you get screwed once again. Don't believe it. Don't believe it when they get out on the podium and they start spinning these yarns about how, about how we have the greatest economy in the world back in February. How many people watching right now thought, wow, man, I'm just doing great. I'm sipping Mai Tais on the beach. It's February. It's amazing. Yeah, Grover doesn't believe that either. Do you believe that, buddy? Hey, thanks, Puerto Rico, for subscribing. Exactly, Grover. You think it's a pile of garbage, don't you? See? That's what you need to do, man. It's total garbage.
Come on, man.
Exactly. Don't believe that. You watch this show because you're not going to see this on the mainstream media. Thank you for supporting independent journalism. I'm not bought and sold by any corporation. I try to cover the stories that I think matter to the American people. I will go after Republicans. I will go after Democrats. You heard me this week talking about President Obama and half of his cabinet being, guys from Wall Street. Heck, I wanted to talk today a little bit, and I didn't have time. But when you talk about these ecological disasters, I mentioned the BP oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you know who allowed that kind of drilling to unfold, don't you? President Obama allowed deep water drilling to take place in the Gulf of Mexico. He said that he thought that the research was sound and that he, it was a mistake. Okay, at least he admits it's a mistake. But it was during a time when you had Sarah Palin saying, come on, everyone, we vetted this research for years. We vetted it to death, was her quote. She said, drill, baby, drill. Come on, let's drill. And then you had President Obama supporting deep water drilling. Then you have this ecological disaster of which these families in the Gulf will never recover. Heck, the Exxon Valdez in Alaska, we still have not recovered from that. You have entire marshes in Alaska that are destroyed. They're never coming back. You know, we lost upwards of 5 trillion fish in the Gulf. 8 billion oysters. 3/4 of all bottlenose dolphins in the Gulf weren't able to have babies, or if they had babies, they were stillborn for years. 3/4 of all bottlenose dolphins in the Gulf. And marshes that entirely are prevented from eroding based on the grasses that are able to dig down in the soil. Yes, that oil destroyed those grasses and erosion. Of course, we're seeing just ecological disaster after ecological disaster. All why? For corporate profits. So when you look at the BP Deepwater Horizon oil disaster, corporate profits. That's it. We should be talking about green energy in this country. We need to be talking more about it because it actually creates higher paying jobs, more jobs, almost 2 to 1 than fossil fuel jobs. 2 to 1. And the jobs they pay more. Upwards of 15% more in wages for green jobs in this country. And we wouldn't have the dependency on these fossil fuels that destroy our environment. I mean, just look what's happening with fracking in this country and these oil pipelines that are going through communities. It's time we wise up. Wise up. This should not be a political issue. I mean, I go back to the data that I brought you earlier in the show during our 5 Things segment when I talked about these new polls that show how close we actually are, what kind of common ground we have in this country. You know, we are much closer than many of us want to give ourselves credit for. These new polls out this morning show that 93% of all Americans support clean air and clean water. 93% support quality education. 92% of us support racial equality in this country. 92% of us believe in affordable health care in this country. 89% of us believe in the right to get a job, a fair job in this country. 93% believe in clean air and clean water. And yet it gets politically spun, and that it becomes this political football. Again, I want to know who the 7% of people are who don't support clean air and clean water. Yeah, hey, I only drink dirty water. Is this dirty water? Because I'm one of the 7%. I only like my water with lead in it. And I drink it with my pinky out because I'm a patriot. I drink lead water. That's the kind of American I am. We'll put a boot in their ass. And I don't believe in education either. I'm one of the 7% that thinks we should have a crappy education. Who are these 7%? I mean, really, I just can't get over it. Makes no. I like my lead water. Feels great. Cleans me out every morning. What, you don't like lead in your water? That's how I got that Alzheimer's. Love my lead in my water. It helps me forget stuff. Go ahead and smash that like button if I brought you any value at all. This is the smash the like button dance. Smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel.